What's up, y'all? Back with another one. It's your boy, sometimes it's your girl, Charlotte Carolina. And I will snap myself into existence until I can't no more. Still blood, not giving a fuck. You feel me? Let's get it. Rest in peace, Malaysia Booker. Love you, baby. You know what's happening. We're going to change. One mind at a time, one idea at a time, one mouth at a time, one heart at a time, one breath at a time. Let's go.
Transgender Americans, particularly trans women of color. As Amna Nawaz tells us, a series of murders in different cities in just 1 week has underscored a larger pattern of violence over several years. And yet it comes at a time when trans celebrities are more accepted and more prominent in pop culture.
Judy, the most recent killing took place last Sunday in North Philadelphia. Michelle Tamika Washington, 40 years old and a longtime advocate for the LGBTQ community, was shot several times. Her death came 1 day after Malaysia Booker was found dead in Dallas. Booker was just 23, and just weeks before her death, she was attacked in a mob-like beating after a minor traffic accident. 1 week before those murders, 21-year-old Claire Legato was shot in the head in Cleveland. She was killed after an argument between her mother and the suspected shooter. Earlier this year, 2 more Black transgender women, Ashanti Carmen and Dana Martin, were also killed. Last year, more than 24 transgender people were killed. And according to a 2018 Human Rights Campaign report, there were at least 128 trans people killed in 32 states since 2013. 80% of them were people of color. Let's now take a closer look with Beverly Tillery. She's executive director of the Anti-Violence Project, an LGBTQ anti-violence organization. Beverly, welcome to the NewsHour. Thank you for being with us. I want to start by asking you about this recent spate of killings. They happened across the country. The circumstances are all very different in each case. Do you know or believe that these women were targeted because they were transgender?
No, I don't know all of the specifics of each of these murders, but what we know is, as you really just showed already, that we are seeing a tremendous number of homicides of trans women of color. Over and over for the past several years, this has been consistent, and we need to pay attention as a society. This is something that's happening to our community members who are constantly under threat, experiencing other kinds of hate violence in our society. And we need to step up and come together and really do something to stop it.
Beverly, your organization tracks the numbers. You've been tracking them for 20 years. When you look at the numbers as we know them this year as compared to last, there appears to be a reduction in the violence. Do you trust those numbers?
Well, what we always say is that even what we report, we know is an underreporting of the violence that's happening and the homicides that's happening. A number of homicides, and of course we can't tell you how many, don't ever get reported for a number of reasons. In some cases, we know that trans and gender nonconforming folks are misgendered by the police. They may not have community members and friends and family members who will step up and say, this is who this person really was. And we just know that a lot of this goes under the radar, unfortunately. Really, we shouldn't get into a game of trying to compare this year to last year. When did the homicides happen? You know, it really doesn't matter. This is a huge crisis, and we have to take action now. We've known about this for years now, and we should have taken action last year and the year before, but it's not too late now.
Let's talk about the action we have seen in Dallas alone, right? There were 3 brutal attacks in the last several months, 2 of them fatal.
Yes.
The mayor came out and said, you know, this is unacceptable. He called it a mob violence, the attack against Malaysia Booker. What have you seen from law enforcement in the way of a response? Or are you satisfied with what you're seeing?
Well, we're not satisfied. We don't necessarily see a response that is saying this is more than just a trend. This is an epidemic in our society that needs to be addressed and taken seriously. And frankly, more and more community members are reluctant to turn to law enforcement because members of the trans and gender nonconforming community, and in fact, members of the LGBT community, have experienced violence from the police. They don't trust the police.
Beverly, it's worth noting we're speaking on the same day the Trump administration has rolled back some health care protections for trans people. Earlier this week, there was another rule they put into place allowing shelters receiving federal funds to turn away trans people seeking services there. There's also the effort to...
What the fuck? Why would you turn away people to receive health care? I don't care if they transgender, gay, bi, lesbian, none of that shit, man. Animals. What the hell, nigga? You got to give everybody health care, nigga. And on the animal subject, animals get treated better than people. What the fuck? We need the veterinarians to stand up and help humans for once. God damn. What the hell? Damn.
Transgender military ban here. What effect have all of these, even just proposals, had on the trans community?
Yeah. I mean, talk about a complete slap in the face. The timing is really important to note here, because on the heels of these homicides where the community is already reeling, for the administration to, one after the other, release these proposed guidelines and rules this week, it's clear that they do not care about the trans and gender nonconforming community. And in fact, in the work that we've been doing in the city of New York and across the country, when we brought together trans and gender nonconforming folks to talk about what are ways that we need our cities and our states and the nation to respond to this violence and to help prevent violence, people over and over again have told us we need housing, we need access to employment, we need better health care so that we can put ourselves in safer circumstances and so we're not as vulnerable to violence that's happening in our community. And what does the administration do? Seek to strip away access to health care, to housing, to employment, all of the things that people have actually articulated that they need to address the violence, the administration is trying to take away.
Beverly Tillery, Executive Director of the Anti-Violence Project. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I was placed in a closet and I was gagged and tied and I was left for dead. But I didn't die. When you look in that mirror, you kind of see a target on your chest. Every night, I pray that this isn't my last. It's a lot of violence that goes on. It's a lot of, I keep saying, this stigma placed upon the trans women. I'm doing everything I can do. I'm talking, I'm begging. I'm asking society to lay down the guns. I'm asking society to stop the violence. I want peace. That's it. I want to live as me, and this is me. I'm trans.
So yeah, whether you got balls or ovaries, man up. Whatever community you come from, have pride and stand up.